Underwriters Laboratories is a nonprofit safety science research and standards development organization. Our mission is helping to create safer living and working environments for people everywhere. We conduct and disseminate scientific research on public safety issues, and we develop standards for public safety in a wide variety of product and service areas.
Chemical Insights is a research institute of Underwriters Laboratory. Much of our research is associated with chemical exposure, and we're concerned about chemical exposure because there are about 140,000 chemicals in the marketplace today that we use to manufacture our products. So it's important from our research standpoint that we undertake efforts to study those chemicals, how people are being exposed, at what levels people are being exposed, and if there's a hazard, figure out how to take the steps to minimize that hazard.
Exposure chambers are innovative tools to study how people are exposed to chemical and particle pollutants originating from a source. A source can be an object, like a furniture, or it can be an activity, like operating a 3D printer.
Over here we have our small glass chamber. Currently, it's being used to do preliminary chemical testing for e-cigarettes. And this is our slightly larger intermediate interactive chamber, which is used for processes that involve hands-on activities, like post-processing and 3D printing.
We look at acute and chronic exposure using the exposure chamber, measuring for inhalation, dermal contact, and ingestion.
Particles of different sizes are emitted and suspended in the air while a 3D printer is operating. So we measure the particle and chemical emissions from using an exposure chamber. This kind of 3D printer will work by extruding a filament-shaped plastic through the extruder and build on the plate layer by layer to form a three-dimensional object. Here are some examples of the printed objects, and these are the examples of the filaments we use. In this chamber, we test emissions from 3D printers. We have sampling lines to measure the particle and the chemical concentrations inside the chamber. And here is our set of particle measuring instruments. This we have a scanning mobility particle sizer. This set of instruments, it will measure particle size distributions for smaller particles, and this optical particle counter will measure the size distribution of larger particles. And these are real-time instruments. You can see the results from the screen. We also have filter collection for particles to be analyzed in the further studies.
When we began the research on 3D printing, we understood that aerosol chemistry would be very important to understanding what was going on during this process. We reached out to some of the world's best scientists on that particular issue, and they happened to be here in Atlanta at Georgia Institute of Technology, the School of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences.
We did a very systematic analysis of emissions of particles from 3D printers. We investigated the type of printers, the manufacturer of the printers, the types of filaments, the chemical composition the filaments are made of, who manufactured the filament, what the color of the filament was, how you operate the printer, such as the temperature of the extrusion nozzle and things like that. And we came up with emission factors and developed a large statistical database, and then that was the basis for trying to develop a standard that the industry could use.
In conducting the 3D printing research, one of the most important things we found was that many of the emissions that are released into the air when these machines are operating are what we call ultrafine particles. And those ultrafine particles are a significant health hazard because they are very, very small, which means that they can penetrate our lung system. They can also cross over into our bloodstream. So our research enabled us to identify that they were there and lead us toward solutions and working with manufacturers to reduce them from the machines and working with users of these machines to take precautionary steps to prevent exposure. We're unique in having the ability and the desire to bring as many experts together and researchers together to help us kind of pave the way for making a safe and healthy environment for all.